Everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with an incredibly exciting sprue review video. Yes, today we are taking a look at the War of the Rohirrim, Battle of Edoras. Specifically, just the lid. No, they sent me the whole box. But I'm very, very, very excited. Yes, Games Workshop have been exceptionally kind and have sent me the new Battle of Edoras box, and words cannot describe how many big emotions I'm feeling as we talk about this box. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I got into Warhammer with the Lord of the Rings, or with those magazines that they used to do. What were they called? I can't remember. Battles of Middle-earth? Something like that. Anyway, that's a very common story, I think, for a lot of us around here who like Warhammer in general, and I'm kind of no different. I was in it a little bit before, but my true love of Warhammer came when Middle-earth strategy battle games first hit the shelves, and it's just been this incredible love affair ever since. And this is an amazing moment for me right now to be able to say that I was there helping to promote, because, you know, and cover the launch of a new edition of Middle-earth strategy battle games, but also a new Lord of the Rings film. Not only that, it's the War of the Rohirrim, my favouriteest faction, my favouriteest place in all of Middle-earth. I absolutely love the Rohirrim, everything to do with Rohan. It's the place I wanted to live when I grew up. I just love it, and I'm so excited that I get to be a part of this. So this is a huge moment for me, and a huge moment for Middle-earth strategy battle games, and Lord of the Rings in general. It's just very, very, very exciting. So yes, Games Workshop sent me the box to build up and paint and sprue review with all of you, and that is exactly what we are doing today. So if you're as excited as I am, please do hit that subscribe button and the like button on this video, because those are fantastic ways to support me and the content that we make around here. So enough mucking about, it's time to dive into this box, because it's a really, really cool box, and I can't contain it any longer. Here it is then. The War of the Rohirrim. My God. A real seminal moment for me. I'm a bit giddy, so you'll excuse me if I'm not 100% on it today. Let me just tuck myself in properly. So here we have the box, the big box. We're of course going to start with the big box, because where else should we start but with the big box? So inside the War of the Rohirrim, I've already pre-cut it open so that we don't have to fumble around with a knife. But inside the Battle of Edoras box game, you get everything that you see here on the back. So you get Wolf, the High Lord of the Hill Tribes, General Targ, Hammer, Prince of Rohan, and Haleth, Prince of Rohan. We have a 176-page rules manual, 48-page scenarios and profiles booklet, 12 six-sided dice, a Middle-earth ranged ruler, 3x3 double-sided playmat, 2 times Rohan houses, and a quick reference guide. And then we have, of course, our 56 Citadel miniatures, although technically we've got a couple more because we've got those houses. So there's 24 warriors of Rohan, 24 hill tribesmen, and as mentioned, we have the characters, and they each come on a horse, I think. I think there is a horse option for both General Target and Hammer as well. I'm pretty certain of that. So let's get this guy open, shall we? For real. Here we go. We're doing this together. What will we see? Probably sprues. No, look, sprues. So, we have ourselves our range ruler, which goes up to 24 inches, and by the looks of things, it pushes together. There we go. And you can split it in half, so 2 12-inch range rulers and one 24-inch range ruler. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's quite neat. That's cool. I like that. Cool. Good stuff. We also have ourselves a big old bag of bases, 40 mils and I'm guessing 25, unless they've gone up, but I don't think they have. They're pretty certain that they'll be 25mm bases. Here we have our Dunlendings. There's a sprue of Dunlendings. We have another sprue of Dunlendings right there. Now these are significantly more detailed and in-depth than we would normally expect from a what's the word I'm trying to look for? Normally expect from a Middle-earth strategy battle games kit. Up until now, usually the boxes of infantry have been a case of you kind of just, well, you push the model out and then you add the shield for most of them. But these are genuine multi-part kits right there. So we're going to have to deep dive into those. Pop them to one side. This one right here, that's Warriors of Rohan. This is what I'm most excited for. Absolutely love the Rohirrim. And that one there is also the Rohirrim. So I'm guessing it's 12 per sprue. And that's the new sprues for the Warriors of Rohan and the Dunlendings. Like I said, a lot more in-depth than before. Now here we have our 2 character sprues by the looks of things. This one looks like Dunlendings to me. We can tell by the horses. Yeah, there's one horse there. There's definitely 2 horses there. So yeah, Targ and Wolf should have a horse and on foot variant. So this should be Haleth and Hammer. There we go. Ooh, got a hair. That's for free. I hope yours is included as well. And yes, again, we should have enough components here to do 2 horses by the looks of things, as far as I can tell. Awesome. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 model sprues, and then we have our Rohan houses. There's one, and there is another. They should be identical by the looks of things. Yep, those 2 sprues are identical, and the moment of truth. This one here should be the same as that one. Yeah, it is. Excellent. Okay, so 2 Rohan houses, 24 Warriors of Rohan, and 24 Dunlendings. It does not get better than this, guys. Right, we have our little card insert here. War of the Rohirrim with a scene from the film. Spoilers. I mean, to be fair, there are genuine spoilers within this box, I'm sure. I mean, we don't know half of the characters, and yeah, it's going to be interesting, this one. This looks to be the playmat, is what that says just there. So that will be the paper playmat. That feels playmat-like. Let's have a quick look. Nope, it is just the playmat, and as mentioned, it is paper. So that's going to need to be left open for a while to fully sit, because it's properly folded, as you can see. If I just do that, that is not flat. So we're going to have to maybe weight that down with something heavy to get that nice and smooth. But there we go. That is the kind of slight downside of it being paper. I kind of wish it was card, like we've seen a lot of the times before, but it's possibly that it's a slightly silly size for card, because it's 3x3. So that might explain why it's paper. But I wish it was. This is kind of the slight downside of this box, let's say. Keeping it all in mind for the Land Raider scale. Here we have the rules pack for the Battle of Edoras. So I'm guessing that this is going to be things like the character sheets and unit sheets. I'm not sure what they're called for MESBG. So just pop this down. So here we have scenarios and profiles. There you go, unit profiles, and a quick reference guide just there. This also contains the build instructions. which is interesting. So this is 2 boxes in recent memory that they've done this. They've put the instructions not as a separate booklet, but into this booklet itself. So like the kind of the base game, as it were. So this is the kind of this is going to include the scenarios and things. Yep, and as mentioned, I'm just trying to be careful not to show stuff to spoil you guys for the film without actually knowing what all of the things are. So yeah, construction guides are in here, as well as the scenarios, the good profiles and the evil profiles as well, which is an interesting way of doing it. Like, I'm used to having a separate like piece of paper for that specific thing, but you know, we'll see. There's our quick reference guide with all of the rules and things for playing your games of Warhammer Middle-earth strategy battle games. And finally, we have the new rules manual for Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and the War of the Rohirrim. There it is, the full bore rules manual right there. It's a lovely looking book. Look at the back there. That looks great. That looks very exciting. Now I need some palisade walls as well. Damn you, why am I so excited for this? It's also a nice up close of the new models. I think they look fantastic. So that is it. Oh no, we have our dice as well. Here they go, in a little black envelope for you, for your viewing pleasure. We should just have a look at these, shall we? Why not? Let's see how they roll. Well, the reds had a better time of it than the blue. Alright, let me gather my thoughts and my things together, and we will pull up the rules manual section. Not rules manual, the rule, well, it is a rule, the scenarios booklet, and we'll pull up the first build, which I'm guessing is going to be character based. So we'll have to see. We will be right back in just a moment. So here we have it then, the construction guides. So there's the first thing over here that says next steps on your Middle-earth journey, and it says the Warriors of Rohan provide an excellent core for any Rohan themed army list by adding the likes of Helm Hammerhand, King of Rohan, and Hera, Daughter of Helm. So we must know that there's going to be a Hera model. I mean, that was fairly predictable, right? You can elevate the contents of this box set to form a fully fledged army of Edoras. You can also further diversify your force by adding some Riders of Rohan and Rohan Royal Guard, providing you with some fast moving cavalry options and a selection of elite highly armoured warriors that can fend off even the most terrifying of foes. Now, I don't know if that's confirmation that we're going to get new Riders of Rohan and new Rohan Royal Guard, but a boy can dream. We also have a list of kind of the other miniatures that we already know, kind of things like the Galadrim and Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli, Defenders of Helm's Deep, for example. So we're seeing that all of that is kind of still relevant. Similarly over here, the Hill Tribesmen, it kind of recommends Lord of the Frecker, Lord of the West March, and Lord Thorn of the Wold. If you include the latter, you can also use some Warriors of Rohan as Rohirrim traitors too, further making use of the models within this box. If you do, it's a good idea to paint your Rohirrim traitors in a different colour scheme than your loyal Warriors of Rohan to help them tell them apart on the battlefield. Should you wish to focus your army building more on the events of the Lord of the Rings motion picture trilogy, the Hill Tribesmen can be used as wild men of Dunland and make a great start for an army of the White Hand force. For this army list, you'll want to pick up Saruman the White and Grima Wormtongue. So there is a little bit of kind of extra support beyond this box for you, so you can kind of read that more in detail. But then we have our construction guide over here, where it's recommending that you have a pair of fine detail cutters, a mould line remover, and some Citadel plastic glue. So these are not push fit models. And we have the kind of key here where we kind of talk about the kind of 3 shields being choice of parts, the variant assembly here, the sequence in which you should do things, 1 and 2, when it's in a diamond shape like that. That's the order in which to do it, rather than kind of doing it in a different order, because it means the components won't necessarily gel together properly unless you do it in these steps. The things in this key, they might not all come up in the instruction guides. But one thing that is missing here is a kind of list of the sprues, a little kind of picture reference of the sprues, as well as what the base sizes actually are. So they should be on a model by model basis, one can hope. And we kick things off with Haleth, Prince of Rohan, who has options here in the form of an axe, a sword, or a throwing spear, one would assume. We also have helmeted and unhelmeted, and then on the horse it will be the same deal, the axe, the sword, and the spear as well, which is really cool. I like that. You should equip them both the same, because if Haleth is unhorsed during your game, he should carry the same war gear from his horse to being on foot, which is pretty cool. So go for Haleth, and again there is not a reference as to what size those bases are, so that's interesting. And then similarly, Hammer, Prince of Rohan, has the option of helmeted or unhelmeted, but only has the one weapon option for the bow, and it's equipped with a sword as well, which is the one you can see here on the mount. Then it's the Warriors of Rohan that we go to, and it doesn't look to me like there are any options here. You just build them as is by the looks of things, which makes sense to me. We should see if that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4 spears, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 with hand weapons, and then we should have 4 with bows. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that should be it, because it's that times 2. Yeah, and then we move on to Wolf, High Lord of the Hill Tribes. Again, there's no options here. You just equipped as is. Again, for on horse and on foot. And General Targ looks to be the same thing. Yep, so on horse and on foot, equipped with a sword. No options there that are necessary. We have our Hill Tribesmen, where we don't appear to have. Oh no, we do. We have a little optional extra here, 8 or 9 for the weapon. Same down here as well. Same over here. Same there. In fact, have I just missed that from the Warriors of Rohan? No, I have not. There we go. So choice of hand weapons for the Hill Tribesmen, which is pretty cool. For those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like it's going to be the same here. So you can probably have 2 sets of 12 that are completely different, which is nice. That's what we like to see, except for our bow options. But we do have some bow options. That's cool. Then we move into the Rohan houses. So there's house number 1 by the looks of things, and then house number 2. Hopefully. Or you're just going to build it twice, and you've got some choices to make on how you wish to do it. I think that is probably the vibe that we're going for. And we just want to have one big house, maybe, I don't know. The choice is, of course, up to you. So we will start this kind of building process with not the profiles there, but we'll start this with Haleth, Prince of Rohan, and Hammer, Prince of Rohan as well, which makes sense to me. Haleth and Hammer, there they go. So we've already looked at the options that are within here, so it's time to have a look at the sprues. Now, there's probably only going to be 2 different sizes of bases, but we will have a look in this bag. It should only be the 40s and what I am assuming are 25s, but they might be 27.5. So here we go. That is the set of bases that we require. All of the bases. There we go. So it should only be 4 40mm bases. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then there should be, what would it be? 48, 52. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, plus 2 for the characters, and then that should be the same. So that should be 26. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then 2 for the extra characters. And I've got 4 left over. Interesting. Loads of bases. Okay. Well, for both of our Rohan characters, we're going to require 2 40 mils for the horses, and we're going to require 2 of the smaller bases as well in order to build them. And then we can just slide this out of the way for the moment. And we can slide our sprue into view. There it is. So both the characters on one kind of A5 size sprue for you there. Now, we're going to be looking at this kind of, well, I'm hoping that it's kind of like 1 character's over here and 1 character's over there. And it looks to be that it is, because we're denoted here with the A and the B. Now, it might be that there's an A component over here somewhere and that there's a B component over here somewhere, but it looks to be that they've actually been separated down the middle here. Although these 2 here, actually, A26 and A27, they probably belong over there. So not quite a full separation, which is why it's 2 characters per 1 sprue rather than a thing right in the middle, which is interesting because it might mean that for these models to come out on their own separate to the box, you'll have to buy all 4 together, like that sort of thing. But anyway, let's have a look, shall we? So we have a sword over here. There's no cutting edge connection there or there, which is great. The spear here is a little bit bent. I'm not sure if that's on foot or on horse. We shall see in due course. But it's a little bit bent. There's a little bit of stress there. So we probably want to clip that right there first, just to make sure that we are not kind of putting even more stress on it by clipping here first. The same thing. No, in fact, that spear is in good nick. There is only a kind of 1 and 2, it's all good, but we then do have a connection point right there on the kind of arm, well, the armor of the arm, so we're going to have to watch out for that, because these pieces are all going to be quite congested because it's MESBG. It's a smaller scale than you're perhaps used to if you're used to collecting Warhammer. These things will all be a lot more finely detailed, so in many ways there's a lot more that you have to look out for, but the principle is still the same. You just have to be a lot more careful because the details are going to be really, really tiny. So for example, when we have this component down here where we've got connection points on both the cheeks, that's going to be really irritating, especially if there is a lip on that piece of armor. It doesn't look like there is, so it's just about okay, but that's the type of thing that you have to watch out for here. We have an axe over here. We're connected on the haft of the axe and on the top of the kind of, well, the rest of the handle, so that's all good, not on the cutting edge. So the weapons all seem to escape over here, which is fantastic. Love to see it. And the same thing goes for this weapon over here. There is no connection point with the sprue on the cutting edge of those blades, which is just wonderful to see. Now, the horses are kind of always going to be this way, where we have the connection points somewhere in the kind of musculature of the horses, but we kind of just about escape it mostly on this one over here. It's pretty much connected on the armor here and here and here, but we should have a loose leg somewhere that I'm perhaps not quite spotting. Yep, there's a loose leg, but not for this one over here. It's interesting. My eyes deceive me, perhaps. Or maybe I'm just imagining that there's 2 horses available here. No, surely not. I can't be. I think we're all good. Yeah, no, there's the loose legs there and there. So we are connected on the armor and on the underside of the hoof. There and there, so that's absolutely fantastic. We love to see that, so that's looking good. This horse on the other hand though does not escape that, because there's a lot significantly less armor here, so we're kind of here on the hindquarters, here on the underside of the hoof, but here on the top of the back. We have this one here on the front of the kind of horse's flank, right there in the middle of the neck as well, which is a bit of a problem. So for those bits you just want to be really careful. You want to have your knife or your mold line remover on standby to smooth those down when you clip them off, but you don't want to add too much pressure, and you want to go across the neck like this rather than down the neck like that, so you don't like kind of cut it straight and flatten it off. You don't want to do that, so just be careful around that. Now, as mentioned, things like the bodies and stuff, it's always going to be a little bit fiddly, especially when you have connection points right in amongst all of the armor and stuff, especially on MESPG things, but we're reasonably okay over here. We have the connection point on the underside of the neck there, but then we have a head that is in two parts here and here. That is a bear head, and as you know, I don't really like that when they do that, because it means that you have to be really careful with the amount of glue that you put on, because otherwise it will all squish out the sides of the components. So when you have to glue the face into the head, so the face into the hair, for example, if it all squishes out, it will fill up the eyes and it'll make it really difficult to paint them, and you'll lose the detail in the face. The same thing goes for this head down here. Now for these ones, it's less of a problem, like when it's a helmet, because the helmet kind of protects you from that doing it, because you have the edge of the armor, so the glue shouldn't kind of like smooth out the face, but it is still something you have to bear in mind when you're putting those together. It does make it significantly more complicated though, so just watch out for those, because it's not ideal. I don't ever like it. It's a bad thing. Bad Games Workshop. Anyway, we have some quite spindly kind of bits of things like the bow here and the reins in that hand you'll want to watch out for. They're not connected on the reins, but we are on the bow. It is very, very, very thin, brittle plastic. So you've got the bending here on the throwing spear. You don't have any on the bow for now, but you will want to be careful. You just want to clip on the bow first, and then when you are kind of getting rid of any excess plastic with your knife or mold line remover, be really careful, because one, it's a good time to cut yourself on the finger by accident because it is so fiddly, but also it's also one of those places where if you apply just even the tiniest amount of pressure and you get the angle wrong, you will take a big chunk out of the bow, and that's going to be a disaster. So just be really careful with that. We have another piece of spindly little plastic here with this arrow. So again, we want to clip it here first, then there at the middle, then there on the arm, because we don't want to apply too much pressure to it as we're clipping it. Otherwise, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of kind of really kind of close-knit details on things like this kind of the body here and this kind of piece of leg and the kind of shin guards all around this. You are just going to have to be really careful with it. Just really kind of very, very gentle pressure with your knife or mold line remover, just to kind of not take too many chunks out of these types of miniatures. But otherwise, it's a very detailed, very interesting kit. It's not the best sprue in the world, but at this scale, it's always going to be slightly more tricky than perhaps something like a set of Stormcast, for example, who are nowhere near detailed as these miniatures. But we shall be back in just a minute, where we will have taken the time to build both, well, all 4 miniatures that this sprue should build, both versions of Haleth and both versions of Hammer, and I'll let you know how long that takes. So Haleth and Hammer are both built. Here we go. They're absolutely beautiful. Beautiful models. I went with helmets and the throwing spear because, well, throwing spears are cool. I like throwing spears. The axe was cool, the sword was cool, but throwing spears are just always going to be really cool. So, they're all built, which means it's now time for the Warriors of Rohan. Now, we will require both of their sprues, this one and this one, and they are both identical sprues, as you can see right there. So some things never change when it comes to MESPG, but as mentioned, this is no longer the cookie cutter, push them off and off you go, just add shields kind of deal. These are proper multi-part models. However, as we've already looked at the instruction manual, there is no options here, so we're just going to jump in and we're just going to start looking straight at the sprues, and hopefully it is kind of divided into this one and this one here. So we'll start down here. Now, one of the things we're going to be looking for here is kind of how quick these are to build, really, when it comes to the cleanup, because the older models are riddled with mold lines. They have mold lines 4 days, every single nook and cranny that you can find. So in that respect, I think the cleanup for these is actually going to be quicker, but the assembly is going to be much longer. I'm going to guess it's going to be roughly 6 to 8 minutes per one, but we shall see. So starting down here, we have basically a case of bodies, occasional separate torsos, and then the cloaks appear to be mostly all in one piece. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 cloaks. This piece here is part of a kind of torso, a set of legs, so it's not part of a cloak, as it were, although it does look like it might connect into a cloak in some way, shape or form, but we shall see. Anyway, these are beautifully highly detailed. We do have now one thing where, again, similarly to the princes, we've actually got the heads are in two halves, 1 and 2. For example, 90 and 89. You can see this again on 69 and 68. Great number. We have another one here, 81 and 82, and we have separate hands as well and all that good stuff. So there's loads and loads of highly detailed components here. Now, one thing that's really nice, and it is a really cool upgrade on the original Warriors of Rohan, and well, it's the bows. The bows look fantastic. They look absolutely amazing. They're not just these kind of smooth bent pieces of plastic. They've got a lovely little bit of a recurve to them. They've got a knock at either end for the bowstring that doesn't exist, and we have the actual grip as well. Again, these are much more detailed to paint, so they're going to be a little bit more in depth and in detail, but they're looking really cool. Now, it looks to me that all of our bows are here, all of our hand weapons are here, and all of our thrown weapons, i.e. spears, are over here. And that's a really nice division of labour here. I like that a lot. We still retain the axes here and here, and we still have a couple of swords. Now, neither of the swords have got a connection point on the cutting edges, and neither of the axes do either, so that's fantastic. And we don't have a connection point on the cutting edges of the spears, and the spears look absolutely fantastic. There's a huge amount of detail going on there. Look, there's even a gap in between the plastic. Something you haven't seen before in MESBG in terms of the quality of troops. Now, one thing we're going to have to always bear in mind with these cloaks is even if they are in one piece, we are pretty much always going to have at least one connection point somewhere that is on an outward facing part of the cloak. For example, that one there. This one is on the outward facing part just there. This one here as well is the same deal. So that's something to bear in mind. And similarly, kind of for the bodies of the men of Rohan, we're going to have connection points in their kind of skirts and things like that. So again, another thing to watch out for. There's not tons of armor on them. They are robed more so than they are heavily armored, and a lot of it tends to be leather, unless it's kind of like these parts here, for example, the kind of scale mail shirts and stuff like that. So you're going to have to move kind of with the curvature of the pieces a lot more than you would perhaps necessarily expect on armoured men of Rohan, but they're, you know, in pretty good nick given that the connection points seem to be reasonably well laid out, mostly in places. For example, we don't have a connection point here in the fletchings on that quiver, nor here and nor there either. There must be a fourth quiver that I'm just not seeing somewhere on that sprue. But there we go. It might be on one of these. Yeah, there we go. Here and here. So again, so the feathers escape that kind of warrior justice. Yeah, so like things like the heads, for example, we want to be careful whenever it's on the underside of the neck, just because that's right up against a beard. But these should all be piece locked. Sorry, like model locked. So it's not a case of like there's multi-part heads that are then optional per model. It will be a case of the pieces will go together as they go together, and they'll go on the models that they go on. So in that respect, it should be a little bit easier in terms of kind of making sure you're kind of keeping things nice and cleaned with your knife or mold line remover. It's just it's going to be one of those things where you're going to have to be quite careful with these pieces, and probably do this over the top of your table rather than in your lap. because these are tiny little pieces and they will get lost. You have been warned if you drop them. The same deal that we've talked about is on the same for these cloaks here. Connection point there, connection point there. There's actually 3 here on this cloak. Boo. This one actually escapes that. Oh, no, it's not. It's right there on the shoulder. So there we go. One thing to bear in mind is the shields. We will need to be careful because, again, you don't want to kind of carve a line out of these. Just move with the shield like this. Don't cut straight across because you will kind of flatten it off, and it will be noticeable on these because of, especially where you have something like a wooden slat here, you will really see it if you kind of just cut that and straight and flatten it off, because you don't want to do that. Again, no different options here. You've got 2 swords and 2 axes, and there are 4 guys stationed on that part of the sprue. And then same for these cloaks over here and the bodies. The feedback remains the same. We do have to watch out for things like heads that are in 2 pieces. I mean, they're all in 2 pieces by the looks of things. In fact, I think they all are. But we have to watch out for things like the long hair, for example. That is one of those areas where the extra bits of sprue that you've forgotten to cut off can sort of show up if you're not careful. You just want to watch out for that. But they are generally positioned in a way where if there is a mold line, it should just over the top of the crest of the helmet, and the faces are all flat on the sprue, so you shouldn't have any mold lines going across any kind of, over the faces. You shouldn't have one going down the nose and over the top of the lips, which is really nice placement if you're going to do it. Like I said, I would have much preferred for these to all be in one piece, but they are not, which is a shame. It does kind of make the things a little bit more complex in terms of the build, but I think I can understand why it's done this way, because these are really kind of much smaller pieces, and they've been they're very highly detailed faces, again unlike what we had before. But I'm pleased to kind of report that it's not like you can see like the entirety of the eye when you've got a kind of a visor on the helmet. You can see it but it's not like so detailed that it'd be very obvious if you didn't paint it in. And that's worth pointing out about these, because they are that much smaller than your typical Warhammer model. It can be that like the faces is one of those things where generally we get away with just using, for example in my recipes, just using contrast paints like Guilliman flesh or Fyreslayer flesh, and then just dropping a little bit of black in there, and then it's done. You don't need to go in and do the pupils as the whites of the eyes, because the black acts as the entirety of the eye, and it works at this scale. Thankfully that is still retained. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. We do have some things which I kind of don't care for, things like just floating handles of swords, which will go into the scabbards that the throwing spears guys are carrying. It's just kind of almost at a certain point it's a little bit of unnecessary extra detail, which will just lengthen the build process. But overall, I'm really excited by these. I think they look amazing, and I really hope there's riders coming that are of the same detail, because these look fantastic. So let's find out how fantastic they look together in just a sec. So our warriors of Rohan are all built, so now it is time to look at the next sprue, which is the Dunlendings. And we have Wolf and Targ here contained within this very sprue. So General Targ and Wolf, 2 of the main baddies in the film. So much like we've already kind of done, because we've already looked through the instruction manual, we know that there's no options here for these guys, so it is just building them straight out of the box as intended right here. So there shouldn't be any wasted plastic here. So again, much like with Haleth and Hammer, we've got some interesting things going on here at the very least, in that we've got kind of like things like the swords. For example, this one, it's not on the cutting edge of that blade, neither is it there as well. And the same thing goes for this one. And there should be one more somewhere that I'm just not seeing. Maybe it's in a scabbard. Maybe it's that one just there as well for Targ on foot. We have the 2 horses, and again, the same feedback as you had on Haleth and Hammer, although we don't have as much armor going on here, of course, because these are wilder horses. And instead, we have kind of things like a connection point here in the mane and here on the tail as well. And we have one right there on the kind of ankle of the horse, and right here on the horse's musculature. So, as per usual with those sorts of things, you just want to move again around the component, sort of like that, rather than going straight up and down it, because otherwise you can smooth it off too much by taking a chunk or flattening it off, which you don't want to do. We have capes again, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and they are in pretty good shape. As so far, most of the capes have been okay. They don't generally tend to be in multi parts, however this one looks like it must be here, because it's the one on the horse, and there's a kind of seam on one of those sides, probably this one actually, because that's where the sheath of the weapon is. So you might have a line. Again, we couldn't 100% avoid it on Haleth and Hammer, but there we go. Is what it is. Same for this horse body, as we've already talked about, right here on the ankle, which is a bit of a no-no, here on the musculature, and here on the neck of the horse as well, right at that seam where it's going to go, presumably with this one, B17 and B16. Yep, that would make sense to me. We have the horse's head right here, which seems to be fully intact by the looks of things, which is just fantastic. I love it when you see that on a Games Workshop sprue. That's always excellent. We don't like horse heads being in multiple pieces. We want them to be as intact as possible, so that we don't end up with a kind of gap going up the middle of the horse's face, or at least the possibility of a gap going right up the middle of the horse's face. I'm struggling to see where the other horse head is. I can't spot it. Oh, it's here. Well, there you go. So that's exactly it. The other horse, we do have a cutout right there. So there must be another part that I'm also not seeing. That would be B19, B20, so B21 maybe is the third part of it, because that won't just be it. But there we go. Is what it is. It's again divided between A and B once again, so nicely down the middle by the looks of things. Although this piece here, A4 is on that side, A15 is on that side, B9 is just there as well. So A belongs over here with Wolf, and B belongs over here with General Targ. Unlike with the other two, though, we do actually have some base fillers, which is nice. So we've got this kind of fallen head, or is that just a helmet? Looks like it's just a helmet actually, just there. And same for this bit as well, which should cover up the kind of extra hex hole in the 40mm base, which is good. We like that. And then the bodies are kind of what you would expect from these unarmored individuals. You can have connection points inside things like the leg, the trouser leg, or under the like kind of parts of the robe or something like that. For example, here and here, right here on the torso either side, in amongst all the leather bits. So you're just going to watch out for those, because those pieces are going to be quite congested. Again, at this scale, it's the type of thing that's very easy to kind of accidentally take off a piece of trim or clog up some detail by accidentally smoothing all the detail off. And sometimes it's really noticeable and sometimes it's not. It is what it is, though. So yeah, it's pretty good shape. We do have two separate pieces of hair here and here, so the face will glue into those, and that seems to be a theme with these kits. And guess that's just kind of how things have changed in terms of the machining that's required at this scale, is that the heads can't really all be put together. It's just the faces will glue into the heads. The same thing I think is present on the Dunlendings. It's been present on all of our miniatures in this box so far, in that your heads are going to be in two pieces, which sounds like it's kind of splitting hairs, but it is something that just kind of extends the build time, and you have to be really careful with the amount of glue, as already mentioned. If you apply too much, it will squirt out either side, and then it can clog up the face, or it can make it so your fingers get covered in it. You end up with a kind of thumbprint right on the head, or worse, right on the face. So just be really careful with those, because you don't want that. That's absolutely something you don't want. We've already talked about no cutting edges. Same thing up here for this dagger. So there's no connection point on a cutting edge. It's on the flat edge, which is great. We love that. Yeah, I mean, generally it's okay. So things like this kind of piece here, the saddle, where we have a connection point right there in the fur and there on the fur as well. The reason we don't like that is because, again, it creates congestion, and it's an easy piece to miss when you're kind of going through the cleanup phase after you clipped it off. And if you do miss it, it'll stick out like a sore thumb when you come to the painting. And if you apply too much pressure with your knife or mold line remover, you actually end up just taking out a lot of detail, which again will be really noticeable when you come to the painting. So you want to be careful on here. You want to be careful on there, here, here. You want to be careful here and here. But that seems to be it for fur, because again, this cloak over here is connected actually on the smooth cloth of the cloak rather than on the kind of fur pelts, which, yeah, it is a slight problem area. You just have to be really careful and kind of not take too much off with the knife or mold line remover. It is what it is. Oh, we have another piece right here as well, actually, right in there in the strands of the fur. We have General Targ's face by the looks of things, and that actually looks like it might be fully in one piece. Yeah, that is a fully intact head. That's our first of the entire box, which is interesting that we're already 28 models in and we haven't had an intact head yet. They've all been in two parts. We have a couple of pieces of armor here that are connected around the outside, and we have these legs, for example, that are all connected on the underside of the boot and in the joint where it's going to glue into the rest of the leg. So that's great. We love that. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. In many ways, it's as good, and some ways it's better than Haleth and Hammer's Sprue. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with that. Again, there's 4 models on this one sprue, and they're very, very detailed. So let's have a look at how long it takes to build Wolf and General Targ on horse and on foot. So there we have it. Our evil characters now all built. Wolf and General Targ. And they look absolutely fantastic. As the other two, Haleth and Hammer, the princes of Rohan, did as well. So, pop these to one side. And we're now going to look at the Hill Tribesmen. So, just like with the Warriors of Rohan, it is 2 sprues. And they are both identical. So we can just pop one of these to one side. Now, one thing that is slightly different here for the Hill Tribesmen is that, well, they've all got options apart from, I think, the bows, which we can just have a quick look. Yes, so the bows are non-optional. Well, in the sense that you've not got 2 different types of bow per model. However, what you do have for all of the rest of them, so on this run sprue you'll have 4 with bows, and then 8 of the other Hill Tribesmen. You can give them the spears or the long kind of pikes and axes and things like that on the first 4. Then the second 4 have the burning torches or swords, as well as an optional shield as well, which are apparently kind of interchangeable shields, unlike with the Rohirrim warriors. And yeah, just a ton of extra stuff on one sprue, which is really cool for the Hill Tribesmen. So, bearing all of that in mind, we are going to have some pretty cool stuff here. If it follows the same track with the Warriors of Rohan, it should be divided as such. And it looks to me like it possibly is. So we have our 4 bowmen over here on the left hand side with some of the optional swords along here. We have our 4 shields here, which are all, as mentioned, interchangeable. We have our kind of flames as well, which should then align with these 4 individuals here, and then our other 4 over here have our long weapons. Now, one of the things that we're immediately going to point out is that there isn't any connection points on cutting edges of the blades, and this sword over here should be nice and familiar for you fans of the Uruk-hai. There are some nods to the later trilogy. Well, the original trilogy. Good lord. Some of these weapons are really cool. We've got the long axes and the long spears as well. Again, no connection points on cutting edges. We do have some extra bits of sprue gate, for example, just there, which we will need to remove. So just watch out for pieces like that. And then this is always going to be the slightly more of a hassle to build set of miniatures because of all the furs and all the things around in the torsos and where we're going to have those connection points with the sprues. And you can see it kind of on display over here. So we're always going to be pretty much on the torsos connected in either fur or in cloth. Now there's going to be occasional things like this one here which are really cool, where it's like right in there in the armpit where it's going to join with an arm, of course, and those are always kind of preferable. And again, similarly, things like this on the underside of a tunic, where again you're not going to see it, so it doesn't matter too much if you kind of take a little bit too much off. However, like I said, you are going to see things like, for example, here on this leg, we're going to have connection points inside like the fur and stuff, and similarly like on the thigh of the kind of soft cloth and stuff like that. It is just a fact of life. There's also going to be things like here on the kind of elbows and stuff on bare flesh, where you can have connection points, and that's always a kind of slightly dicey area to kind of clean up with your knife or mold line remover, just on account of it being smooth flesh and you want it to still retain that kind of smoothness. So you just, again, as like with the horse's flesh, you want to be careful. You want to move with the piece, going left to right around it rather than across it in a kind of with too much pressure, because otherwise, like I said, you will kind of flatten off like a bicep or an elbow or something like that, and you don't want to do that. Of course you don't want to do that. Generally though, as far as kind of things like this go, and a comparison would be something like the Dark Oath Marauders, for example, we're pretty good on a lot of these connection points. The majority of them seem to kind of have been placed pretty tastefully on the underside of a boot over here and there, for example, and there as well, here as well, there, all that kind of stuff. That's always really good to see. Same like just here and things, because those are the easier parts to clean up, as opposed to, you know, as all of those previously mentioned, when it's connected in the fur or whatnot. We have a couple of heads here which are fully intact, but a lot of them also press into a neck that's already there. So that one's already got the face glued in. It's already kind of sculpted into the body there. But you see, like for example, that head that will press into that hair. So because they're not wearing helmets and stuff like that, so they've not done it that way. So rather than a head that will stick on, a lot of them are faces that go in, as it were, so they will be kind of piece locked, as it were, so that they kind of fit with the hair that has been sculpted for that particular body. It's okay, you know, it's not like the Rohan warriors where the face is glued into the head and then the head is attached to the body. In many ways this is better. It just looks and is easier to assemble, essentially. Otherwise, we're in really good nick here. The shields, again, only one connection point on each of them. Again, different to the Rohan warriors. So they all had 3 connection points on their shields, on a round object, which is just more opportunities for accidentally taking too much off. And you always want to have less connection points because it's less opportunity for a mistake. And when you have things like this, they are very plain details, of course, but when it's like this, it's much nicer and much easier to handle because you're only having to deal with it once when you're clipping it off, rather than having to kind of smooth down 3 different clip points on a component. The flames and torches look absolutely fantastic, loads of detail, and they're not connected in the kind of strands of flame. It's right there on the top of the torch, which is okay. That's all right. That's not too bad. That could sometimes present an issue when it's kind of right in amongst the flame. Again, it's one of those pieces that's easy to lose when you clip something off and you forget that it was there. But that being right on top of the stick means it's just nice and easy, and it should be reasonably sensible to kind of get that knife or that mold line remover in there to get rid of that extra plastic. So that's pretty good. And yeah, overall, it's nice. It's a nice sprue, actually. I'm really impressed with this one. I think it looks pretty good, and there's not too much to worry about that we weren't expecting in terms of models like these. So that, for me, will always kind of make it much better than it necessarily is, because it's a pleasant surprise. But we have to see how many components it takes to build each one. I'm looking at the instruction manual just out of shot, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 components per model. But because we get those options on the pikes and the swords and the flame torches and things like that, we're in pretty good nick here to have 12, well, 8, 16 of them be slightly different in terms of their kind of weapons that they're carrying, and then the bows will all be the same. But that's good. Lots of variation, especially if you want tons of Dunlendings, or hill tribesmen as they're known at this point in the canon. Very cool. Let's see how long it takes to build them. So our hill tribesmen have all been built, and well, I've whisked them away to be primed, so they're currently drying somewhere else. So now we have one last thing left to build from the War of the Rohirrim set, and that is, of course, the Rohan houses. Now, I was having a look at it last night, because yes, this has been a 2-day job, and well, all 4 of the sprues are exactly identical, right? And the instructions initially I thought were really confusing, because it didn't exactly tell you what to do, but it is the nature of the Middle Earth terrain, as you can see right there, that it is all 4 identical sprues. Now what I'm saying is the nature of the Middle Earth terrain is that it's incredibly modular, and the instruction manual here basically tells you how to build one house and then you duplicate it times 2. So for example, we'll just quickly pop that one there. It tells you how to build a basic rectangle structure with a roof, and then you have an option of a porch which you can then put in places, and then you have kind of a sloped roof, you have a kind of straight roof for which you can put the porch either coming off the side here on the sloped roof, or you can put it on the kind of this flat end as well. So that's interesting. And the reason I figured this out was because I googled the Rohan house, because these aren't new per se, these are kind of repackaged into this box. We've seen these Rohan houses before, and they are very, very, very cool. So in theory they can be as complicated or as simple as you like. You could build one massive Rohan house out of these 2, or you could build 2 and you can put the porches in different places and you can have a window and stuff like that. This stuff is kind of optional and all that good stuff. So with all that in mind, it is a terrain sprue, and therefore it's going to be fairly academic when we sprue review it, as it were. And as mentioned, all 4 of them are completely identical. So there's one of the sprues. All of the connection points should be around the outside of these large pieces. There you go. Done. But because they're completely identical, it means you know exactly what the pieces that you're working with are. So for example, you have the long roof here, which goes with the other long roof on one of the other sprues to make a triangle roof for one house. Same for if you wanted to do one really long one, you could do that, or you could do a really, really, really tall roof. That's the other thing that you can do. These can go together as like a double stack like that, which makes it wider obviously, and therefore you need more of these wall pieces to put together a building. It's really kind of, the imagination is really the key here. It's your kind of desire on how to build a house. I'm going to build 2, and I'm going to build them fairly simply because, well, I need to get some more before we start building the Great Hall itself. So just like with the Osgiliath terrain that we did a long time ago, that stuff was new in that box. This stuff is not 100% new. So we're going to start our Rohan terrain collection by building 2 houses, and we're going to pretty much follow what the instructions tell us to do. So they should be reasonably identical. We might change where the porch sits and stuff like that. But honestly, like I said, the choice is yours, really. The sprue is very simple. It's very easy to follow once you figure out that it is just more of a guideline. Because otherwise, you know, if you're struggling with it, it's like I said, it is just, these are just suggestions for how to put together the kind of the various parts of the house. But again, your imagination is the key here. So I'm not very imaginative, so that's why we're going to build fairly boring houses. But there we go. Cool. Like I said, like those sprues, really simple. So I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to start painting them. Painting them? We're nowhere near painting them. We're going to build them first. I'm going to see how long it takes to put together a Rohan house. So with the big box all built and off being primed and all that good stuff, there's 3 other models that we've got to have a quick look at. And these are always quite difficult to sprue review because we have some Forgeworld characters. And our Forgeworld characters don't come with any instructions, and you know, they're not really sprues. So we are just going to have a look at the pieces though. So what we have is we have Freka, Lord of the West March. We have Helm Hammerhand, Wraith of the Hornburg. And we have Lord Thorn of the Wold. So we've got all 3 of these pieces of paper, and we've got all of the components. So we'll start with Lord Freka. Why not? So inside the Lord Freka blister pack, we get a 25mm base. We get this, I guess you would call it, let's just call it a sprue for the sake of argument. We get this sprue, which is missing 2 pieces because mine fell off in transit. You have this piece here, and we have 1 and 2. Now, as with all the things Forgeworld, you want to give it a good wash in some warm water and some dishwasher soap, and that goes for all of these miniatures. And it's a pretty reasonably simple build. In fact, we're missing something here. We're missing legs. Those ones. Yes, those are the legs. So the legs are going to go in there, and then this hand with the sword is going to go in there somewhere. This arm is going to go on the other side there, and this one is going to be the upward facing fist, and that's it. That's what you get. Now there is a couple of little bits and bobs here to talk about. So for example, here on this little piece, and I'm just going to see if I can get the camera nice and focused on this one. There we go. For example, on this bit, you can see, because we've had the snap there, we've got a little bit of extra sprue that just needs to be cleaned off so it'll actually fit into its little peg. So you want to watch out for that if yours has experienced the same thing, because otherwise it just simply will not go. Similarly, on this piece here, you can see we've got a little bit of extra, that little stick just there. We don't want that. That needs to go. So we can get that off, and then it should slide right into where it's supposed to go on the model. As for the other 2 pieces, 3 pieces I should say, we've got the legs here. They're attached at the underside of the feet, which is quite nice. There shouldn't be anywhere in the kind of sort of means of mold lines. It might have a little bit of it going on here, but that's going to be covered up with this piece, one would assume, kind of like that sort of thing. Well, maybe not quite that, but we'll see. You can see it on the picture over here. So there's not really any kind of extra detail that needs to be clipped off of there, apart from this little bit on the underside of the the skirt, so that needs to go. That doesn't need to be there. This piece, we're only going to have to really worry about this kind of joint here. It's going to be a smooth thing, so it's going to clip straight in. And we do have this little kind of bit of stick, which we don't want. We've lost focus. There we go. It's quite difficult with these small, tiny bits. There we go. So we've got this little kind of bit that needs to come off. So we'll get rid of that as well in due time. Pop that to one side. And then we have this, which has got the most connection points to a piece I've ever seen in my entire life. Particularly of this one this size. And we've got a couple of extra gates down here and here which need to come off. And the best thing to do here is to kind of just have a look in and around things like hair and the fur, because you never know, there might be a little bit extra. For example, there's a little bit there on the cloak that needs to come off. So as we kind of always talk about, you just want to be careful. You want to move with the curvature of these pieces. It should come off pretty easily because it's not meant to be there, so it shouldn't take much persuasion to come off. So just be careful with that. You don't have to dig too deep to try and get it off, because it should just sort of prise away with very little persuasion. So there you go. That is Frecker, Lord of the West March. And we'll get that built in just a minute, but we'll do the rest of them at once, because otherwise, what's the point? So next up, we have Helm Hammerhand of the Hornburg, who's this one here. And well, to build Helm, we will require this base, which comes in the pack, and then we have this little kind of set of components, that bit there, and we have some legs, and we have a body with a head already attached, which is absolutely fantastic. Love to see that. No separate heads here. Now we do have, again, similarly to Frecker, so once again, I'm just going to try and keep the focus going. We're connected here at the underside. Usually are with Forgeworld pieces. It's always good in that regard. You just want to be a little bit careful around here, because I don't know if that's meant to be there or not. It looks like it's probably meant to be there. So we want to just leave that bit, but this needs to come out. So once we clip it, it should just, again, just come away, because it's not meant to be there, usually is the case. So just watch out for that. And same for this little bit here, that's not meant to be there. See, just a little bit of pressure, and it already is coming away from the model. That should then slot in to these legs, which are just here. And you can see, based on that kind of that little indent there, and on the underside there, that is meant to be there, that kind of square. And that's what helps you line up the body with the legs. Let's just quickly inspect these legs. We've got a little piece, a little circular piece, a little tubey bit on the underside of this foot, which we don't want. But this long stick here we do, but there's just a little bit of extra sprue there on the end, which needs to come off. You can see it just there, like that sort of thing. According to the picture, this little trim bit on the boots going down the middle is meant to be there, so that's all good. I can't see anything else that shouldn't be there, which is really nice. It's a cool little piece of resin right there. Love to see that. Awesome. We've got a little bit of kind of a weird little stick here. It's not a stick, it's like a little shaving. It just needs to come off. We'll just persuade that off with the knife in the future. And then we have these bits here. These should be key locked, but you can tell by the way that the model is built, based on that kind of final piece of final picture, that this here, you mean the thumbs are obviously the giveaway. This is his right arm, and this is his left arm. Our left, our right, but you know, in reverse. And you can see the reason why that kind of bit on the underside of the foot is meant to be there, because of that groove right there. So you know, you just want to line up the foot with that. And there you go. Really simple. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 components plus a 25mm base, one would assume is the size. Finally, we have Lord Thorn of the Wold. There he is. He allows you to take Traitor Rohirrim, which is an interesting thing. There are no traitors in my court. So, Lord Thorn of the Wold. Well, again, so we have this kind of main body of him. We have his legs, which go in here, just sort of like that. And then we also have a bit for him to stand on. We have his head, and we have his sword, which goes on that arm there. Now, when you look at the sword piece here, as you can see, there's that long stick. That is not meant to be there, so we just have to be careful. It is right on the cutting edge of a blade. That's a fairly normal thing for Forgeworld. We don't like it, but you just kind of generally get used to it. Again, it's because it's this like extra bit of sprue gate, or kind of resin gate. It should just come away, not really too much persuasion, but you want to be really careful on the sword because again, resin's really soft, so when you're applying pressure with a knife, it's very easy to accidentally cut away too much. So that bit doesn't need to be there. This piece looks to be reasonably clean, although yeah, there we go, that is a little bit of extra kind of runoff that this needs to come out in there between the horse. I mean, it doesn't really matter because this is a piece on his base, so it's going to kind of get covered up with basing material anyway, probably based on the kind of angle of the dangle there. And we have the head there where there isn't any kind of extra stuff going on. Now he's going to be one of those kind of like sort of kind of lessons in, or masterclasses or showcases in your talent of not taking off that peg that's just there, because that is how you're going to end up getting it in at the right angle here, because you can see his neck is sloped, so he has to sort of come in looking off to this direction. That square there, that's to guide it in, so you know, don't accidentally take that off. Then we have the cloak here. We've got a couple of extra pieces on the underside here and here. We've got a bit there as well, and there's another bit around there. Those all need to come off. The cloak is a kind of straight edge right around the bottom, as you would expect, so you just want to watch out for that bit, so just make sure you get in that thing. And then you've got your kind of guide for your legs is here, right in the middle by the end of that sheath, and right into there, so that's how it slots in. So you've got the sheath is cut off there. That's how you know to guide it in, and that is where it leads us nicely onto this bit here, this little tiny bit of extra resin just between the sheath and the kind of, well, the leg, as it were. So that little bit just there, that needs to come off, so it'll get a nice clean fit with the rest of the piece. This bit here as well, that also needs to come out, and that bit there. But otherwise, it's fairly simple. You do have a guide kind of peg under here, so don't kind of smooth that foot off too much, because you just need to kind of cut around here and there, just because you need the little kind of groove that's on the underside of the foot. That is what guides it in to this piece in that orientation, like that sort of thing. We do have other little bits here and here that do need to come out. That's quite, there you go. That's how easy it is to just kind of press some of these pieces out, usually because there's a gap between the two. So there you go. And then yeah, there's not really much in the way of mold lines at all on any of these miniatures. There's a little bit of it going on there, so just be careful. You can just gently run a mold line remover over it and it will get rid of it. So that's it. Lord Thorn of the Wold, Helm Hammerhound, and Frecker, Lord of the Westmarch. Those are all of the pieces you will require to build all of these miniatures. 1, 2, 3 bits. We have this guy, he's there like that, and then we have Frecker as well there, like that sort of thing. And we have base, base, and base. There we go. Lovely. So we're going to get all 3 of these built up, and we'll tell you how long it takes to build all of them. Again, shouldn't take too long. There's not a huge amount to do with these smaller Forgeworld characters. It sometimes can take as little as 10 minutes, and sometimes, depending on the fit of the pieces, it can take much, much longer. We shall have to find out in due course, in just a second. So there you have it, folks. All built, primed, and, well, the question is, did I manage to paint the entire thing? Well, first up, we of course have Wolf. I did manage to do him, and, well, both versions of on foot and horse, and that goes for every character within the box. Wolf is a really interesting challenge here because there's many, many different shades of black that are going on here. And it might not initially look like it, but oh boy. Next up, we have General Targ. Of course, we have the other evil character within the box. And it's really nice to be able to talk about these characters as being good and evil. That's one of my favourite things about Middle-earth strategy battle games. There's no blurred lines. So yeah, another really interesting challenge. The horse in particular I was really proud of. Here we have Prince Hammer with bow and again on foot and on horse. He's definitely done in exactly the same way. You know, like I said, everything has been done when it's based on its horse and on foot. Then we have Prince Haleth. This one's my favourite. I think the yellow and the red looks absolutely fantastic on the horse, and I'm really, really, really pleased with that particular horse's colour scheme. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. It's a little bit more complicated than what we've done before, but it's really, really effective. And then finally, 24 Warriors of Rohan. All done. Because of course I did. I did all 24 of them. I didn't do the Hill Tribesmen just yet. Or the Rohan houses. But we're coming to those. Or the Forgeworld characters. There never was much hope, just a fool's hope, of getting it all painted in time. I of course did all of the Rohirrim. That was just never going to be in doubt. I really wanted to get them done and I was very, very excited. I haven't done the Hill Tribesmen and I haven't done Helm, Frecker or Lord Thorn just yet. But those are coming. We're going to get them done because I'm just super amped about all of this. So ultimately, what do we think of all the new miniatures? Well, this is a sprue review, so this is where I have to put my sensible hat on just for a moment. So, there's a couple of things to point out here. One, things are very different now for Middle-earth strategy battle games. This is what we're going to be doing going forward, if we're going to get lots of infantry kits that are going to be redesigned in this way, which, fingers crossed we do, and even things like certain characters, that would be really cool to see some things return in plastic, a new form of plastic as higher quality as these actually are. That would be amazing. I would love to see that, and 2025 could hold a lot of fun surprises for us going forward. But as I say, things are different now. It's gonna take a little longer to build your armies, especially for the Hill Tribesmen and the Warriors of Rohan. Gone are the days now where you just press the warrior off and add a shield, by the looks of things. I mean, just for these two sets, I must clarify that. But that is a big change. So it does mean that there's kind of a little bit more involved in the building and getting ready for playing your games of Middle-earth. And, well, that can be a good thing or a bad thing. One, the models are just so much better. They look absolutely fantastic. And I'm so happy with them that I could almost cry. However, it did take nearly 10 minutes to build each one. And when there's 24 of them, 240 minutes, that's just shy of, well, no, that's about 4 hours, isn't it? So that's a significant time to put into it, as opposed to the older version of doing it, where you could probably get it done in about an hour to do 24 miniatures. Again, you just press them off the sprue and stick them on your slotted base and off you go, especially for things like archers and stuff like that. Now, that can be a criticism or it can be a praise, because if you want to spend loads of time on your Middle-earth stuff because it is your favourite game, then that's fantastic and that's amazing. And if you don't like building miniatures, like myself, that can be a bit of a thing to beat it with. And, you know, I think you can kind of fall down on either side of the argument there. And that's kind of it, really. That's the sprues themselves were in pretty good nick, to be honest. I mean, building these miniatures didn't take as long as you would kind of necessarily think it would for slightly bigger or more sort of 40k or Age of Sigmar oriented miniatures. They are very, very good, and they look amazing. There's just so much character in them, and it's so iconic. And I love that there's a couple of similarities between some of the older builds of the Warriors of Rohan. There's definitely kind of an upscaling, not an upscaling, but like an up-qualifying, that's not a word, but of these miniatures. And it's just amazing to see it happen in real time like this and be involved in the promotion, in this whole thing, encouraging you to go out and get involved in Middle-earth. I'm so excited. I can't even get my words out straight. The characters are all wonderful, and they've generally been that way since they started re-releasing certain plastic miniatures for certain characters like Theoden or Eomer or things like that. They've generally just gone together really, really well, and they look gorgeous. They're beautiful miniatures, and I'm just really happy with this box. The Rohan houses are cool. They're not as modular as the Gondor Osgiliath stuff, but they are still pretty modular. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there for the more kind of creative people out there other than myself. So I really enjoyed putting that together. I think it looks fantastic. It's just a nice little terrain piece, and it'll be fun to kind of get in and paint them, because I haven't done them yet either. Okay, yeah. I know I didn't do all the Rohan. So I don't really know what else to say about this box other than it's just really, really, really good. And any criticisms that I had during the Sprue reviewing part of it, you know, they're all sit there, and those are the parts that you kind of have to just deal with as building miniatures. And yes, it does take certain points off of the final score of what we would review this box of. But we live in a time now where we have new Warriors of Rohan and a new Lord of the Rings film, and I'm just gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater here and say, yeah, we're gonna go for a 9.5 out of 10 for this box. We're just gonna do it. We lose an entire 0.5 of a point because there weren't new Riders of Rohan in this box. And the rest of it was just nitpicking. Honestly, I'm just so pleased with it. I've never met a product that I've just had so much joy as I've been building it and putting it together as I have with this one. And I just, yeah, words. So is this box for you as a fan of Middle-earth already? I would say so. And if you're looking to get into Lord of the Rings, this is actually better in some ways because it's more familiar to how you would kind of work with these miniatures if you are already collecting Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer Age of Sigmar or any of the other main games. They're not push fit miniatures, so it's kind of different to those kind of starter boxes for the mainline games, but in terms of just like being more familiar in terms of models, it actually is. The quality is here, so you know, you don't really have to kind of worry about the kind of like weird filling in of plastic between an arm and a cloak. Like, so if something's like got their arm out like this, the cloak would come all the way along the arm, and then there would be a bit of extra plastic filling in under here. You've actually just got these kind of individual limbs now, so the miniatures just absolutely look fantastic in as you come to expect from a Games Workshop miniature. So if you've never got into the Lord of the Rings Warhammer before, now is a really good time with this box. Of course, the rest of the range is still the same, so don't expect the same high quality as you've got here from the rest of Middle-earth, but just basket in it. And oh my god, I just cannot speak at all. So I hope you found this video useful in some way, shape or form, in between me stumbling over my words of excitement. And if you did, like I said before at the beginning of the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because I need you. Thank you so much for watching. I really cannot wait to see this film now. 9.5 out of 10 for the box. Let's hope the movie's a 10. I'm going to go calm down now and paint some Dunlendings. Or Hill Tribesmen, as they're called in this box. I'm just going to go and do that now. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you'd like to support me further, you absolutely can do so by heading to patreon.com/Warhipster, just like all of these wonderful, amazing people have done. And alternatively, you could become a YouTube channel member by clicking on the join button below, exactly like these fabulous folks have done, scrolling up on the screen before you. There are so many of you out there that it really takes my breath away, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you do, as without you I wouldn't be able to keep making these Contrast Plus videos. And if you really like this video and you want to send me a little thanks, just click on the thanks button just below this video. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.